Okay, so thank you first. Thank you all for having me and inviting me, Bob and Jean. It was to your conference. I've always planned to go there someday, so it's good that this is a virtual one. The next one will be in person. I'm still a bit excited because our champion Max Verstappen won another race. So I don't know if you guys follow the Formula One over there, but that's a big thing over here. So I'm a bit psyched still. I've got a list of questions, basically, of topics that I received from Bob to talk about, which I will go through with you guys. There's a Q&A planned at the end as well. But if there are any questions or comments or whatever during my presentation, feel free to break in, and I hope I can hear you. I cannot. The screen is very small, so raising your finger won't work. But just shout and I'll stop.
Can you hear this question?
I can hear that question, yes.
Okay, so maybe we don't need to get right on top of it. Just in this area, speak loudly.
Jake, did your mic pick up, Bob? Okay, we're good on our end.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
Great. So first of all, a small introduction, brief introduction on who I am and who Moravia Consulting, the company that I work for, is. My name is Klaas Kuperus. I have been working for Moravia Consulting for the last 11 years now as product manager for HP calculators. Before that, I have been working for 13 years for a distributor in the Netherlands who was also handling the HP calculator since 2008. So I've been in the HP calculator distribution for quite a while, almost, 14 years now. I've started in the calculator business selling them to resellers, to distributors, so purely a distribution function. And over the years that grew to a more consulting function. I am in touch with local ministries, with ministries of education, obviously long time history with HP directly. And now as a licensee holder for HP calculators since 2021, since last fiscal year. Moravia Consulting is a company based in the Czech Republic, founded in 1991, so over 30 years of history. The company was founded by Alois Hubel and his wife Ivona Hubelova, who have been running the company ever since. So it's a privately owned company. We have about 40 people employed in the Czech Republic, a few outside of the country, myself in Holland, one in the UK, and several external consultants. Always active in the HP business. So we've been managing the HP calculator business as master distributor, as distributor in different roles over the years for the last 30 years. I think I'm pretty sure we have all the HP calculator models, including the HP O1 watch in our office. Our owner is a bit of a hoarder, a bit of a collector, as I'm sure you guys are as well. So we have them all. We have all the history, but we've created as well for HP during our master distribution setup time. A lot of the packaging. So we produce packaging, local packaging. We've produced the manuals. A lot of the manuals that I'm sure you've seen and you have were produced by Moravia. So it's a very logical step that we are now in the license setup where we are even closer to HP and directly responsible for the production and distribution of HP calculators. I was asked to say a little bit more about the current setup of the HP calculator distribution and production. As I'm sure you are well aware of, HP has changed their setup in 2021 from a direct model into a brand licensing model, which means that they have appointed two companies to use the license or get a license on producing calculators under the HP brand. That means that HP itself is completely out. I'm saying completely out, but it's obviously not completely out. There are still people of HP involved. There is still a direct connection to HP. We are no longer in a daily contact, but there is a lot of contact between the HP teams and ourselves. But Moravia and Royal are responsible for production of calculators, distribution of calculators, marketing, software, anything around the HP calculators. HP appointed 2 companies, Moravia Consulting in the Czech Republic and Royal in the US. And these are their responsible areas. So Moravia is responsible for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and Asia Pacific. And Royal handles the Americas. So the USA, Canada, and South America, or the South American countries, are handled by Royal in that sense. Royal already was a license holder for HP, so they produce as well shredders under HP brand, laminators they do under HP brand. So they were already involved in HP license, in the HP brand license setup. For Moravia, the licensing setup is quite new, but with our history and our experience in HP calculators over the last 30 years, that was we think a smart choice, but HP decided that that was a smart choice as well. Brand licensing means that we handle basically everything. So we as a company, or companies, pay a license to HP for using the HP brand name. But other than that, we do everything ourselves. So we handle packaging, we handle new products, we handle software development, we handle marketing, we handle everything. Where Moravia is, because of this, now the number 3 producer in the world on calculators, next to or after Casio and Texas Instruments. We are focusing mainly on the production of new models, as well on the software part, where Royal is handling mainly distribution in their respective areas. Are there any questions so far before I go further? No?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry?
So are the models distributed by Moravia and Royal are unified? They're all the same models, or they can have different models?
No, they are in principle the same models, where some models work better in some regions than other regions. So for example, the HP12C and HP12C Platinum have, the HP12C has historically always been a US model, or more a US model than a European model. Mainly because of the RPN, and the HP12C Platinum has always been more a European model than a US model. In Asia Pacific, that is mixed quite a bit, but there is a bit of difference. But the other models are all the same. What we've done, and I'll touch on that 1 or 2 slides later, is making sure that we unify as much as possible the packaging. To reduce costs and to make sure that we don't have to have an enormous number of SKUs. In the past, HP used to have a different SKU, so a different article number for each region. So in the US, that's not, it was all ABA. So you had the HP 35S/ABA, which meant the American regions, English regions. But in Europe, as we have so many countries and so many different languages as well, and so many different rules and regulations, we had UUG for Holland and France. We had UUZ for German and Italian. We had UUW for the Nordics. We had ABF for France, B12 for French and it. So we had, I think we had at some point 12, 13 different versions of one specific model, which obviously doesn't make sense anymore. So what we are trying is to bringing them more together, making unified what's the word? Packaging that fits in all these markets, but the products itself are exactly the same. This is the next slide that I was mentioning. So the current portfolio that we have consists of these models: HP 10B2 Plus, HP 17B2 Plus, HP 12C, HP 12C Platinum, and the HP Prime, and the HP 10S2, which is a model that you probably haven't heard of, but I'll touch on that a bit later. What we have been doing at first is changing the packaging for several for several reasons. One of the reasons was what I described before, was that we wanted to unify packaging to make sure that we don't have to carry an enormous amount of SKUs. We want to have one SKU, one article number for each calculator. That means that a lot of different languages need to be put on the calculator, especially for the European and the Asian market. What we have also done is reduce the content in the packaging. The CDs, for example, with manuals are no longer attached. We are also working with QR codes for manuals in all different languages that can easily be found online. We had to put the new licensing, so I don't know how big your screen is, but here on the right bottom you see the licensee holders. For North and Latin America it's Royal, and for the rest of the world it's Moravia. UKCA rules, new CE rules for the European Union needed to be added. So we've decided to change the packaging completely to a new standard. And this is the standard that we'll have for all the models that we have. I'm just looking at my cheat sheet on the side. One point that Bob was asking about was as well the new battery and the new packaging around that. What we had to do, and that was based on Australian rules, was to change the physical calculator in that sense that loose covers for batteries are no longer allowed. They have to be attached with screws. So we needed to change some of the products as well in terms of hardware, but other than that, there hasn't been any changes so far to these products yet. Also, the firmware and the software on all these products is still the same. We have enough, and that is a big issue at the moment for any company that produces consumer electronics, is to get enough supply of components, especially the ICs, the chips. For now, we have enough of that available to maintain this product line for a while, for quite a while in some cases. But that was also the reason that you don't see the HP35S in this list anymore. The HP10S2 is a product that was released for the Australian market. As you know, HP had two scientific calculators, lower end scientific calculators, the HP10S Plus and the HP300S Plus. Those are no longer produced, cannot be produced like they were anymore as well. But we are working on some new scientific models. And in order to not lose shelf space in certain Australian retailers, we've decided to create the HP10S2, which is not released to the rest of the world, at least not until there is a reasonable demand. But it is a model that was released for the Australian market as an in-between model, I would say, in that sense. Did have a picture somewhere, but not sure where it will pop up. It's not here. Maybe I can show you that later on. So this is the new versions, about the new versions of the existing products. So the products itself are not changed. Only where there were mentions of Hewlett-Packard on the calculator, which was only the case with the HP12C series. As we don't have the license on Hewlett-Packard, but on HP, we are using the HP logos and the HP brand name on the calculators. But the majority of changes were just on the packaging itself. There was a question as well about when these versions will be expected in the sales channel. Well, we've started the production on these models already. That is also concerning the screws that have to be in the on the calculator in the battery case, and they are also in production already. So depending on the model, they will be already in the sales channel, or they will arrive in the sales channel in the next few months. But these changes have already been followed through. Any questions so far? No. Good. Then the HP Prime, which is the flagship model of HP, as far as education goes, at least. There's a lot, well, not a lot of changes there, but a lot of updates that we had to go through. The last, I would say the last 2 years, there have not been a lot of updates, a lot of investments done in HP Prime as far as software, as far as updates go. So we really needed to pick up where we left and make sure that we create a steady basis for Prime. That means that we have invested a lot in HP Prime and getting contracts under control. As you might know, or this is new for you. HP worked under a license model as well for the software, for the computer algebra, for some of the graphing apps. So we've set up contracts with the people who were responsible for that. So we didn't want to change too much, and we didn't want to do everything from scratch. So we've signed contracts with the people responsible for both the CAS and the graphing apps to ensure that at least everything remains stable and remains as it was, but in the same time as well gives us the opportunity to invest in adjustments, to invest in updates on that using the same people who have been building that from scratch. That also includes some some HP people that were formerly working on the calculator business, such as Cyril de Berton, Tim Westman, people that have been working on these calculators and have been creating these calculators in the past. So we're still working with these people. They're still part of the team. Status of the firmware development and expected release of the firmware connectivity kit, that is something that we are currently working on very hard. We had to change all the servers and all the software onto the servers of Moravia, which is not something that can be done overnight, unfortunately. Everything from connectivity kit and connectivity kit updates was running on HP servers, and as HP basically cut ties with the calculators, we had to restart that and change everything onto Moravia servers, which is, as we speak, done, and we are expecting an update on the firmware, both the firmware and the connectivity kits, in the next few weeks. One of the biggest advantages of doing everything in-house is that we have become much more flexible. A few months ago, we had an issue here in Holland around the exam mode of the HP Prime, where there was a change in the firmware that was done before, which was no longer allowed. So we connected to the developer, and that was changed basically overnight. And a few days later, we released a firmware update, and the problem was solved. So this gives us a lot more freedom and a lot more possibilities of working on updates. What we have also done is released a bug, a website to report bugs. A lot of them already came from the community, from the HP forum, of course, forum of a Museum of HP Calculators. A lot of people like you, enthusiasts, experienced users of HP calculators, who have come to us over the last few years with updates, requests, bug reports, adjustments that could be made, some for better, some for worse. We all took them together. We're taking the response and the feedback from the community very seriously. And we are currently working on making sure that a lot of these changes are being used as well for the next firmware updates. But it gives us a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to do what is necessary to make sure that Prime is continuing to be the best graphing calculator for the educational market. Future plans in terms of hardware we don't have. So there are no plans to release a limited version of Prime, or an even better. I wouldn't say there is, I don't even think there is a possibility of creating a better hardware version of Prime. The hardware of the Prime is far above competition. The screen, the battery capacity, the memory, everything in it is better than the competition, TI and Casio, the models that we directly compete with. The only plans that we see are in the field of the firmware and the software. There is a lot of things Prime can do that are currently not being done. And that is something where we could see future changes and future plans, but not in terms of hardware.
I have a question about the Prime.
Yeah.
The last 5 years or so, there has been a fair amount of additional development to the software for it. However, the documentation has not been updated. Will there be plans to update the documentation to match what's in the firmware?
Yeah, good question. I completely forgot to add that, but that's a very good question. That is absolutely something that we're currently looking into, but as you can imagine, with the manuals of a calculator like this are being they are huge. I mean, I don't even know, I believe it's 700 pages or 700 pages in total. That's an enormous job to go through and comb through and get all the mistakes out and update the thing, especially because it hasn't been done for so many years. It's not on our top priority list, but it's definitely something that needs to be done. And when I say not on the priority list, I don't mean that it's not going to be done, and it will not take another 5 years, because it's definitely something we have to do. But the first priority for us was to get the firmware and software under control. So my biggest issue at the moment is that we are currently not able to release a stable version of the connectivity kit and offering regularly firmware updates. As you remember, in the beginning of Prime, we had at least 3 times a year an update on firmware. There were new things added, there were bugs changed, and that over the last 2 years hasn't happened anymore. There was no regular update anymore. So for us, that has the highest priority. But absolutely, manual, but also online help needs to be updated and changed as soon as possible.
Thank
you.
Go ahead, you got a question?
Richard Nelson, I've got a question. You mentioned the developers. Is this Tim and Cyril or other consultants?
No, good question. So Cyril is on the sideline still involved. So he's officially no longer working for the calculator division. That's the same for Tim Westman. With Cyril, I'm in almost daily contact about a lot of things. It helps that he is located in Europe, obviously. So we're in the same time zone. I know Tim as well. We are in contact from time to time as well. Our main developer is Jeff Tupper. Jeff Tupper is from Pedagogy in Canada, who has been developing all the graphing apps on Prime, and he is the main. So he's on the contract with Moravia. He is the main developer of Prime at the moment.
Okay.
I'm just checking my cheat sheet again. Bob, status of firmware we discussed. So the team size and members, it's Jeff mainly, it's myself. We have a few teachers here in Europe that help us talk to schools and work with schools. We have a dedicated product manager project manager in the Czech Republic, and there is a few more people there as well who are working on the calculator. So in terms of size of the team for Prime, we have quadrupled it, or there's 5-6 times more people than there were in the past, and hopefully that should have an effect as well on all the other stuff.
Question?
Yeah.
This is Richard again. How are you doing with regards to your contacts in China and selling in China?
So there is a distributor in China who handles the Chinese market, or they handle more than just China. There have been a lot of discussions with the Chinese government as well, and with some schools there, together with David Favela at the time, on pushing Prime a lot against competition. That never really worked. that had mainly to do with price competition as well. TI-84 is still very strong in China, and the TI-84 is a much cheaper model in all senses than the HP Prime. So there is not a huge market in China at the moment, but we're working mainly through our local distributors who are handling the Chinese market.
Okay.
I got another question.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, one more question. When you mentioned TI and Casio, is Sharp not in the picture?
So Sharp is in the picture. We are the master distributor of Sharp calculators in Europe as well. We do more than just HP calculators. We produce our own brands of calculators as well. So there's more than only HP for Moravia. Sharp is pretty big in Europe in the scientific and the office market. They don't have a graphing calculator anymore, at least not for the European market. We are not responsible for Sharp in any other regions outside of Europe. So I couldn't answer that question for the other regions, to be honest.
Okay.
I'll come back later on the other question about the HP partner websites, Bob, as you mentioned, but I'll first address the new additions and future plans. So I addressed already the future plans for HP Prime. Some of the plans that we have, so we do want to increase the number of calculators again. We now have, as you saw in the beginning, only 5 models, 6 if you count the HP XS2 in that as well, but 5 models. And we want to increase that assortment again. And one of the things that we are looking into is re-releasing under the collector's edition working title some of the former models of HP. And that could be 15C, 42S, so the models that collectors like and that collectors are asking for and that also still have a high demand. Besides that, we are working on some new office products, so products for the office line calculators, mainly for markets in Eastern Europe, but also in the Americas. They are still in high demand. Years ago, HP had the Office Calc 100, 200, 300 line, which was a completely different line than the calculators that I'm sure your interest goes out to. But in our new licensing setup, we are able to release these products as well. And we think that it will give the HP portfolio, especially for resellers and distributors, a much wider attraction and a much wider sense to add to their assortment. Obviously, always keeping in mind the HP quality of calculators. So what we don't want to do is take some cheap Chinese products, put an HP stamp on it and market them as HP calculators, because that is not what we believe the HP brand name stands for. And then the scientific products. So we had the 10S Plus, 300S Plus, and the HP 35S as scientific calculators. All of them are gone. We are releasing I think that's the picture that I've showed here, the HP 10S2 as an intermediate model, purely for the Australian market. But in the meantime, working on new releases for this scientific range to ensure that there is a full range of products used for education, again from HP. There was one other point that Bob mentioned, that was about the HP partner website. Well, that goes back to the first slide. Basically, we have launched the hpcalc.org website, which is geo-based. So depending on the region you're in, if you visit the site, you'll get either our website or Royal's website. There was a question on the pricing on that website, especially the pricing on HP Prime. And the biggest problem at the moment for the US market is the import tariffs that are calculated on any product that is produced in China. Some of the HP calculators are produced in China. Some of them are produced in the Philippines, but especially the products that come from China have to be calculated with 25% import tariff on top, which means that pricing of these products, and that includes HP Prime, has been increased when we took over. How HP did it before, nobody knows. It's believed that they have been eating up the import tariffs themselves since President Trump decided on that a few years ago. But that is the reason that the pricing on HP Prime has increased on the US websites a lot since we took over. There was a lot of debate and discussions on that as well, but that is not something we can change, unfortunately. We are looking into possibilities of changing that to make sure that we can make sure that Prime is priced at a reasonable price as well, again, in the US. But that is the reason, and I'm sure there was a question coming about that as well, that pricing on the US website is slightly different than pricing on the European website.
The reason for the question was the pricing for the Prime was listed at $249, while simultaneously a year ago when the transition took place, it was stated that there would be no pricing change. And so it appeared that the issue was the price of the website was wrong and it was taking 9 months to fix it, and which is obviously a problem. But the perspective that you just explained, so essentially what you're saying is the $249 price is in fact correct with the new pricing structure and so forth. So it's still one kind of problem. It's a different problem than what we thought it was.
Yeah, it's a problem, and the price has not changed in my part of the world. So we are still having the same prices on everything. But what we are seeing is a very high increase in costs on components in everything. You see that with every consumer electronic product at the moment. We are still able to manage that reasonably, so we don't foresee any high price increases because of that. But the main reason for the increase in price in the US is the import tariff that that they have to charge on HP Prime. There is no, and 25 or even more percent. That's not something that any distributor or reseller can just absorb and take for themselves. That has to be calculated towards the market, unfortunately. But there are some possibilities that we see, and we hope that in the next few weeks, months, we are able to come with a solution that puts Prime again in a slightly better price level in the US.
While we were talking, someone checked the Royal site, and it actually is now $149. So
oh, they changed it already. Okay.
So it's mysterious. Maybe Royal is absorbing those charges now.
That could be. To be honest, I don't know. I'm not involved in that part of the discussion, and I'm happy to, but it could be. Yeah.
Good news.
Richard, again, going back to the previous slide, I forgot what it was called. You said other products in the past, scientific products. Previously, there was a data stream available. Is that the kind of product you're talking about?
No. Now, the data streamer is a product that I personally would like to see, but the data streamer was made by an Israeli company, which I forgot, Fourier, sorry. That is no longer available. So the company itself does exist. It has been sold and resold in the past. I don't know exactly what the status is currently. We had the same discussion last Thursday together with Cyril, and he was also very clear that that product is no longer available. And even if they would have that product available, it would no longer work with the current type of sensors and interface. That wouldn't work. And it's not something that's sold as well, quite a lot, to be honest. We've sold a few of them, and we scrapped a lot of them. So that was not a really profitable product for the market, unfortunately. The same with the HP Prime wireless connectivity kit. That was also not an extremely successful product, but we have decided to continue with that one. So we won't be stopping that, but we will be looking into the success rate of that and the usability and continue to see if we can continue with that product as well. But for now, we decided to keep it and to offer it as a plus, as an add-on with HP Prime.
Okay.
Let's move on.
One question, you mentioned the HP 15 as a collector's item. As you are aware, there are some bugs were found there, so they're hotly debated. When you are re-releasing this, are you in the position to change those bugs or remedy those bugs?
No, we are working on new collector's edition, and the one of the products that we are currently working on is the HP 15C, which was a flagship model from the past. It has been re-released in 2011 in a run of 20,000 pieces, which sold out like crazy, but had some bugs indeed. So we have currently found a way to create a 15C with 3 times the memory of the previous version and the original version. And we have also eliminated all the bugs that were reported. So all of them, there was a whole list of them, and all of the bugs were deleted. So we now have the most powerful and most stable version of 15C in the hardware of the HP 12C, which is exactly the same. The only difference, obviously, is that there is a newer processor in that than the previous one, which helps as well with making it faster. And that is the first model that we will come out with. Hopefully, beginning of next year, we will have it ready for shipment and distribution. We are looking into re-releasing these older models. My dream would be to have a full line of flagship models from the past and bring them back, preferably even in the way that they were released in the 80s. It all depends on if the hardware is available, if we can manage to get the software working on the new ICs, and that has proven to be quite a challenge on some of the other models as well. What we're also doing is looking very good at what the community wants. So even though we are not as active as we would love on the forums, for example, I do read everything and I reply from time to time. But we are listening closely to what you as a community and as HP enthusiasts want and require. And as much as possible, try to implement that in any of our future plans. That includes the bugs, for example, that were on the 15C.
Richard again, I really love to hear what you have said with regards to listening to the community. As a part of that community, I would have to be honest, our desires are not necessarily the same desires as the general market. So I'm sure you can appreciate that, right? I mean, I'm not saying don't listen to us because we've been shouting for 40 years.
Yeah. No, I think the best example of that is HP Prime. So the HP Prime was developed for students in high school, and not for for people like you. And that sounds, it sounded worse than I wanted it to sound, so forgive me for that. But
It was exactly accurate.
so HP is a commercial company. We have to make money. We want to sell as many calculators as we want. Let's be honest about that. And the market for enthusiasts and collectors is a relatively large market for HP, but it is not a market that can finance a full division, obviously. So the HP Prime has always been developed with the student, the high school student in mind. So any changes that we do are with that in mind. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are not listening to what you as a community, for example, want. Because the Prime can do both. It's a very powerful product, hardware sense, and it can do both. So we are listening to what you want, and we are taking it very seriously. It can be that it's not always immediately on top priority. So as an example, that exam mode problem that I was describing earlier in the Dutch market, we had a week to solve it. And if we didn't solve it, HP would be cut off from the allowed calculators in the examination here in the Netherlands. And that would mean that we would lose a potential of 100,000 calculators, which is a huge risk, of course. So the priority lies in creating a stable product for all markets, while in the meantime also looking at what everyone wants and trying to find some common ground. So the good thing for you, I think, is that Prime is stable. Prime is good enough for exam mode, exam use. Prime is good enough for high schools. So we don't really need to do any changes for high schools. The only thing I would love to do, and we are working on that as well, is create a stable and more extensive version of Python on Prime, because that would mean that in markets like France, it would be accepted and pushed more. But all effort that we are doing currently is on fixing bugs that come from the community and from you as users. So I think that we are now at a point that we will be focusing more on making Prime more suitable for your use, maybe.
We like your thinking.
Thank you.
I have a question. To me, the biggest distinguishing factor of HP in the market is that many of their calculators have an RPN option. The 10B2 Plus is a fantastic little machine, affordable, lots of functionality, but does not have RPN. I know when HP was still maintaining it, there was some discussion of adding an option similar to the 20B and 30B for RPN. Is that something you might be capable of doing and making an improved 10B2 Plus with RPN?
That's a very good question. We're currently not thinking of something like that, but I would be very interested in looking at that. In all honesty, I don't know how big a market is for an RPN calculator, because that has also been the reason that the financial calculators have been not accepted in some other finance exams because of this RPN. That is why they created 12C Platinum in the 80s, to have a model that is the same as 12C, but then without the RPN standard option. But it is something we would need to look into. It depends on it. So, I mean, ICs for 10B2 Plus are quite difficult to get, so the chips. So we are having issues with production of this particular model. So I wouldn't necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily cheer when I come to my management and say, well, I need some of these chips to create a completely new product. But on the other hand, it's also not that we decide tomorrow a new product will be created and it's done in 2 weeks. So that takes some time. So it's something definitely worth considering. And if you have any suggestions or ideas on how to do that, I would be very happy if you could share them with us, and we'll look into that.
Cyril is quite familiar. Cyril was the prime architect. I'm sorry. Tim was the prime one on the and there was discussions when it was being developed, so he would have insights.
I think I have a presentation that I received via Gene at some point as well about this point, but I'll definitely look into that. Yeah.
Go ahead. I have another one to go ahead.
Another quick question regarding the other products. Over the years, we've discussed with HP about producing a 4-banger, and it's always been a interesting topic of discussion from a marketing perspective. But if you say RPN is not a big market, I would think that a low-end machine that was RPN would certainly go a long way in educating the general market and having them appreciate RPN more and think of it as a market stimulation product. But I just making this comment that if you ever get to a 4-banger type product to think about, that will be a consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is absolutely. So thank you for that. But and like I said, we are open for anything. We have a lot of flexibility now that we handle production, software creation, and distribution. So there is a lot of potential and there are a lot of ideas internally and a lot of plans, and some of them are already in a very far stage as well, to create and to come out with new products. So we want to, so this list that I showed you in the beginning is far too small. I also I don't think that we can go back to 20, 30, 40 different products. That is the other end of the spectrum, but we should definitely add some scientific models. We should definitely add some office models, and I would love to add some legacy models back to this list. Yeah.
I have one last question about Prime that I meant to ask earlier. The versions, the device and the Windows versions have support for language. Python, but the iOS and the Android versions never received Python. And I understand you're retooling, reorganizing. Is it the intention for Python to be supported in all platforms?
Yeah, the intention is to have all platforms exactly the same. And but that is something that cannot be done overnight. So you have to understand we had to do a lot of things, well, not from scratch, but restart them again. And that also means creating new servers to run the software updates on. For Prime, for example, create a new connectivity kit. So there will be a new connectivity kit that is connected to our service, so that when a user attaches their calculator or starts the software, they will immediately be prompted that there is a new firmware available. We are working on updates for all the apps, and all the apps have to work in the same way. Because you cannot tell to a teacher, well, if you're using the calculator, it works like this, or you have access to that. And if you're using the iOS app or using the Android app, it's all different. It all has to be the same. And that has proven to be very tricky or very challenging. But we are finalizing that. And I hope that in the next few weeks, we are able to release the first version of that, first stable versions of that, and share them, of course, with you as well.
If you've got Cyril on the job, you're got a good chance of winning.
Thank you. That's good info to have. We are convinced that HP has a role to play in the calculator market, and that even though the calculator market is it's not a growing market, it's a declining market. It's still a very interesting and very big market, and we want to be playing a big role in that for sure.
This is Richard again. Can you comment on how you work together with Royal? Yeah, how's that relationship working out?
Yeah, very good. It's a very close relationship. So we both have our roles to play. They are in charge of the apps on HP, so the non-HP apps, I would say, the 12C app, the 10B2, so all the HP apps that are not Prime, that is what they are handling. We are handling the HP Prime apps and the HP Prime software, so everybody has a role to play, and we put that all together. They are very strong in distribution, very strong in marketing, and we are very strong in producing calculators, in talking to factories in the direct context with factoring in marketing and design. And we have a slightly longer history on selling educational calculators. So the Prime is handled by us, but we are in direct contact with them because we are, like I said in the beginning, the plan is to have one product for the whole market. So one Prime for the whole world. And we don't want to go back to a situation where every market has its own product and is handling their own discussions with factory and buying their own components. And so it's a very, very tight and very good relationship with them. Yeah.
Klaas, Moravia and your team have been quite public in participating in forums and Facebook and things of this nature and events like this. But no one from Royal, to my knowledge, has had a public face or open invitation for discussions. For example, the apps that you mentioned, there are things to talk about with that, but there's no one to talk to. To your knowledge, is that an overt decision on their part Should we be trying to reach out to someone there?
I can put you in touch for sure. That's not a problem. I cannot speak for them, so I don't know why they are not doing that. I think it has to do with the people as well, and then with the. So I'm very active because I have been doing this for a very long time. We have some other colleagues as well, some younger people who are very active on social media, on forums and stuff. I also think we take that role a little bit more. There is a little bit more to communicate about Prime than there is about some other models. So it's not something done deliberately or on purpose. So in the back end, in the background, they are very active, and they're more focused on the distribution and logistics of the products in their respective markets, where we are focusing mainly on production and marketing. And in that line is also, I mean, this is marketing. What we are doing right now is marketing. We have to talk about our products. So that is more our, we all play a role, I would say. But if you want to talk about the apps and have suggestions on that, I can put you in touch with people from Royal, and you should talk about that with them as well. Yeah.
Okay, I'll follow up after to get the right contacts and try and establish that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is Richard again. Be sure to give our regards to Vladik and Bruce and all the folks at HPC when you visit them.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Be sure to give our regards to the HPC group when you visit them.
Yeah, I will. That's I think it's end of October. I will meet. I will. Cyril will be there as well, so I'll give you his regards or your regards to him as well. Yeah, for sure.
We have a question. The 35S missed the mark, but not by much, in my opinion. And I'm wondering if you have plans to re-release it, or with the bugs fixed or something like it, the bugs fixed.
Yeah, so we sold tons of them, so I would love to bring them back. The issue is that the ICs, the components in the 35S are no longer available. That was the same issue with the 50G, as you might remember, that everybody wanted to continue it, but they couldn't because of lack of components. We could re-release the 35S, so in theory everything is possible. But that means that we would need to rewrite the software and everything as well to work on the new ICs, and that is something that at the moment we don't have the capacity for. So that's the plain and simple answer. But it is definitely something worth considering. As I mentioned, there are no scientific calculators in this list, so we have to come out with some new scientific calculators, and we might as well use the models that we had and make them even better.
You got a lot of bugs and stuff to fix, though.
Well, not if you're not going to do it.
Yep.
You said they're not going to do it.
Oh, I see.
At the moment, there are no fixed plans to come out with 35S on short term, but it's definitely something on the list, and we're considering the possibilities. Yeah.
No, I meant the 32S2.
Same story.
Okay.
The same story. So there is a possibility, for example, to use the current HP17B2 casing and make that a 42S. That is also something that we're considering. So there are different options. There have been a lot of very interesting calculators in the past under the HP brand that could come back. I mean, if you can build a 15C out of a 12C, you could also build a 16 and an 11. The question is whether that makes sense, and whether there's a market, and whether it's necessary, or if people demand it. But it's something that we are considering. Absolutely.
Yeah, 16C was very much an exceptional machine. The market may be small, but it's got to be one of the best calculators for those people,
Yeah, like I said, we're considering all these options, and now that we have this all under control, and HP itself is applauding that as well. They want to. So HP has a huge history around calculators. So the calculator business for HP as a company has been always not the backbone of the company, but it's the history of the company. It's the only product in the HP portfolio that they still have. I mean, what other consumer electronics is still there after what, 40 years now, 50 years. So it has a long history. So bringing back some of the former models back to their original glory, or even better, is definitely something that is applauded and that is pushed as well and motivated by HP itself. So it's something that we are considering, and when there is a possibility, we will absolutely follow through.
Klaas, I don't want this session to cut off before we take a moment to thank you for your time and your frankness and your clarity of clarifying many things. I feel far better about what is happening and why things haven't been as public, and much more clarity for the situation. So we want to thank you for doing that. We can continue to chat, but I didn't want it to end without us giving you a quick.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your time and your your frankness and your honesty. It's refreshing to hear, no, we can't do it all. We're not going to do that because this makes sense. It's astounding how rare it is to get answers like that.
Well, thank you. I might have overstepped my my boundaries as well. I'm sure I didn't, but like I said, the feedback and cooperation with the community like yourself is important. And even though we cannot do everything you ask and you want, we are taking it very seriously. We listening to the community with the new 15C that we're working on. We are asking the community as well to test it, to get us feedback, to come to us with changes, with requests. So we want to continue doing that, and but we're not as big as a company as HP, but we cannot change things overnight. So bear with us and be patient, and we will get to it. I'm sure of that.
This is Richard again. Just out of curiosity, have you visited our conference website?
The website I visited, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the conference itself never, but like I said, I hope that you guys continue doing this for many years, and I'll be able to get there maybe next year. So
next year, we're not sure yet where, but about the same time. So plan on coming to visit America next year.
yeah, let's do that. Let's make that an appointment. Good.
And as a group, we're happy to sign NDAs. We've done it many years in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I talked about that with Bob prior to this call, indeed, if we should do that or not. But there's not, I mean, there's also not any secrets that I really cannot share with you, or that I didn't tell you. So it's all in good faith. And like I said, I think it's also smart to inform you guys of what we're doing and where we're going. And yeah, so no problem. Thank you very much for having me, and I hope that you have the whole day left still.
Well, a half day.
Half the day. Okay, good. Are there any questions before I sign off? I see we have 2 minutes left. I don't know what happens after the 2 minutes, if it's cut off automatically or.
Yeah, it just cuts off with no warning.
I'll make mine quick. Hopefully, in the next update of the Prime, the Python app will be able to save Python scripts without having to clone the Python app itself.
So as far as Python goes, I would be very interested in setting up a kind of a work group of people that know what they want and know what they do, to make sure that we create a version of Python that is stable and that does what is needed and that does what the community wants as well. So if I didn't see who was asking the question, but if you feel like you can contribute to that, or anyone in that room, please reach out to me, send me an email. Bob has my contact details, and I would be happy to work with you.
Well,
Thank you.
do we have
Excellent.
a work group?
We'll talk about some
we'll
way
discuss
of
that.
convening a team discussion.
We'll
do that.
get something going for you.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Okay, let's beat Zoom. We'll end before they do.
Yes.
Thank you again.
59 seconds.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Klaas.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend, what's left of it. Thanks for time on
you
your
too.
Sunday.
Thanks for having me. Great. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.